Oh, you've reached. Yes. The disclaimer is right there. Sorry, we took a split second to get that disclaimer out there. But we're going to talk about a mighty heart. Do you have a mighty heart? Do you know what a mighty heart is? Can you guess what the topic is today? Can you figure it out? Well, we're going to talk about a mighty heart. First, I'm going to tell you before I go into the studio that you have reached the Books and Music Show, Books and Music Review Show. I'm going to introduce you to our guest right now.
Gerard Perry.
Go for it. What are we going to talk about? A Mighty Heart. What is Mighty Heart?
It's the title of a book by Marianne Pearl, the widow of Daniel Pearl, a journalist for the Wall Street Journal who was kidnapped and executed by Al Qaeda. And you, some people might have heard of the title from the movie, the film adaptation of the book by the same name. It starred Angelina Jolie. But the book was published a while ago, in 2003, by, well, like I said, the widow of Daniel Pearl, and it's it's a several different things combined together. It's a love story that explores their relationship, how they met in various locales, because they were both journalists. She's a freelance journalist, and he was a reporter for the Wall Street Journal, and I think the bureau chief, South Asian bureau chief. I could be mistaken, but he was he had a number of different jobs, but he was investigating. One of the things he was investigating after September 11th was was Islamic terrorism from South Asia and the Indian subcontinent. So he was tracking Al Qaeda. He was basically tracking Al Qaeda, and Al Qaeda eventually started to track him. And one of the things that's discussed in the book is his meetings with various uh, Islamic radicals, Pakistani militants, and people who are in charge of madrasas. One of the things, um, one of or the precipitating event was his meeting. His arrange He arranged a meeting with Sheikh Jelani, who was a radical cleric who's probably known for establishing schools in the U.S. But he was kind of blown off. But eventually, this led to him being him arriving for a meeting and being kidnapped. So part of the book is an explanation of this, told from the perspective of his wife at the time, who was holed up with Azra Nomani, another journalist who was a close friend of Daniel Pearl. So they were trying to get any sort of information they could, even at, they were trying to get any information they could as to his whereabouts, and they were getting very frustrated. There was a police chief who was extremely helpful, and he's one of the main characters of the book, but a Pakistani police chief. But at the same time, they were being thwarted by other forces. One of them is being the ISI, which is the Pakistani intelligence. It's kind of a state within a state, and there are some people who claim that they were responsible for Daniel Pearl's kidnapping, and in fact, one of the assailants, Omar Saeed Sheikh, who was a notorious terrorist and eventually convicted for his role in Daniel Pearl's kidnapping and murder. He was connected to the ISI and essentially admitted connection. So you have this subplot mystery, because his wife and the people who love him are trying to find out where what happened to him, but they're kind of running up against a brick wall. The people in charge of Pakistan don't really want to be that cooperative, even though this was a notorious. This case was on the news every night. There were reports, and that's another issue. The fact that they were trying to withhold information, because Daniel Pearl, of course, was Jewish, and if they had known, they were worried that he'd be killed because of the fact that he was Jewish. If they found out, I think another aspect of the case was that he was just he was so important to, like I said, that he was kind of tracking Al Qaeda, but Al Qaeda wound up tracking him. So I mean, there's that part of the book, which is basically a true crime investigation of a crime, but also the personal relationship between Daniel and Marianne Pearl and how it developed and progressed. And at this point, she was pregnant with their baby, and you can imagine how dealing with this at the same time was how traumatizing that was, when she didn't know what had happened to her husband. So it's kind of reads like there's a crime investigation of a crime, but also a love story. So there are a number of elements to the book, and another element is the international element. The idea that hovering over all of these kind of mundane interactions and tracing the whereabouts of the kidnappers, the emails that they receive every couple of days with threats of violence if their demands aren't responded to. One of the demands was to release. I think one of the demands was to release jihadists who were in prison in the United States. So over this, there's a discussion of what's really happening in a place like Pakistan. At the time, Pakistan was, I mean, and even now, it's kind of a hotbed of radical Islamic radicalism. You have all of these groups like Lashkar, Taiba, and which was responsible for the Mumbai massacre. And you have Al Qaeda and the Pakistani Taliban and all of these groups which have kind of mushroomed since September 11th.
Well, what about Daniel Pearl? So what in that book, was that the story of what is his life, his
life.
You know, where does it begin? Where does the story begin?
Well, it is the story of his life, because his father, Judah Pearl, was a I believe he was a classical violinist, and Daniel Pearl had, like his wife was very much an international person. I mean, his wife was, I think, part Cuban, and also I forget where her parents were from originally, but they were just kind of kindred spirits, in the sense that they loved traveling and going all over the globe and meeting new people and exploring different things. and that was one of the that that, that was the reason they wound up meeting and pursued the careers that they did in journalism. So Daniel Pearl was kind of always looking to. I mean, he was an investigative reporter, but that might have been one of the reasons he was an investigative reporter, because he was always looking to explore different things and different ideas. And one of the I don't know how many people remember this, but that was one of the pleas at the time, that the people who were holding him didn't realize how the people who were holding him captive didn't realize how what Daniel Pearl actually was. He was kind of a bridge to different worlds, but I think in a sense they did.
Why was he a bridge to different worlds?
Well, because he wasn't
To look right at that red light, you'd be looking right at the camera.
I'm sorry.
No apologies.
No, he was a bridge, kind of, but just because I don't know how to describe it, but he was just someone who wanted to understand the other perspective. Like I said, he was going around. He was actually talking to Islamic radicals, trying to see why. I mean, why they despised the United States and the West so much, trying to kind of get a picture of why this is happening. And his father started the Daniel Pearl Foundation after his death, which was trying to reconcile different cultures.
So, what exactly does the Daniel Pearl Foundation do? Do you know?
It gives scholarships to journalists, to different journalists, and I think it also hosts peace camps between Arabs and Israeli youths. It also, I think they put on different concerts, international concerts, because his father was a violinist.
Oh, I love the violin, and I love when people play the violin. So, where are these concerts, and when are they being held? Do we have any information on that, or are these in the past, or do they have concerts now?
I don't know. I think it's an ongoing.
I love the
an
violin.
ongoing program.
So, what exactly is the Pearl family doing today? Besides, they do concerts, and what else? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, they're primarily involved with the Pearl Foundation. Marianne Pearl, his widow, is a fellow at the Pearl Foundation. His father is the one in charge, and you see op-eds by him occasionally denouncing the type of ideology that terrorist jihadist groups like Al Qaeda espouse. I don't know what Daniel Pearl would be. I mean, what his thoughts would be if he was still alive. What his thoughts would be about how this is kind of metastasized. Then now you have Al Qaeda and even conceivably worse versions of the same sort of.
So, what is the main message of A Mighty Heart? I love the title of the book, A Mighty Heart, for so many different reasons. But what do you think is the main message of? Oh, we're talking about a book called A Mighty Heart by, what's her name? Marianne Pearl, who was married to Daniel Pearl, a journalist. What is the very main message of A Mighty Heart, the book?
I think the main message is the persistence of love. One of the things one of the last parts of the book is a series of letters she received from dignitaries and politicians, but also ordinary people from places like Pakistan and Indonesia throughout the globe, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, by people who were appalled by what happened. So I think the main message is just the endurance of love, the idea that even hatred and even hatred can't kill love. I think that's the main idea.
I kind of like that because I kind of believe that hatred cannot kill love. Hatred cannot kill love. Love is more powerful than hatred. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's proven to us so many ways and so many times in the world. So that's the main message. I like that. Love is more powerful than hatred. I think that's the message of the Bible, too.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much the message of the Bible. Okay, so how did Daniel... one, I have to tell you, when I'm in and out, I'm not listening. When I'm out of when I'm out of the studio area, I can't hear what you're saying. So if I ask you a question and you already answered it, we're going to answer it again just in case anybody's, we're not to get a drink of water and they may have missed that. And if you did hear it already, sorry for the repetition. No apologies. This is a books and music show. We pretty much do what we want. So how did Daniel Pearl change this world, the world? His worlds.
Oh, I think he changed the world by through his actions. I mean, his reporting, but even his death, I think, changed a lot of people's minds and hearts about this subject. I think he kind of it brought awareness of of the dangers of this sort of insidious thought, like what it could do and how it manifested in real life. The idea of just killing someone in order to make a political statement, I think it appalled a lot of people, and some people, I guess, especially his family, it kind of rededicated them to the cause of trying to pursue peace and educate people about the dangers of this kind of warped ideology.
That's interesting. Okay, so what other questions can I ask you? I'll have to reread that book. I did read the book once a while back. I read it. And along with another book, which we'll do at another time probably. What is the other one? It's either The Den of Lions or The Lion's Den. Do you remember that book?
The book by Terry Anderson?
Terry Anderson, yeah. That was an autobiography? It was just a time telling of him in a historic part of what he
I don't know. I think it was an autobiography. I think it was about I think it was either an autobiography or it was an account of the days that he spent as a hostage of Hezbollah and Iran.
That was amazing. The part that I do remember, which really, really got to me, was when they captured him. Do you remember that part or not?
I didn't read the...
Oh, you didn't read it? That was a very good book. And I saw him in person. I had to see him in person. He actually gave a talk when his book came out, which I forgot what year that was. But it was Terry Anderson. He described how they had captured him. And to me, it was just a horrible, horrible thing. They captured him. It had something to do with cars, or they took him from a car or something. And what they described to me is like kind of horrible torture. Before they got to the prison, they wrapped him in saran wrap. I can't even imagine being a human being and being wrapped in. Okay, not saran wrap, not a trademark. No frills, plastic wrap. Apologies, saran wrap. But you get this picture of him being totally, totally wrapped up. He's wrapped up from head to toe. I think only maybe his nose was free so he could breathe. And all I thought was like, you talk about hope. You talk about hope. Do you have hope? Do you have no hope? Do you think things are hopeless? I actually pictured, as I was reading that book, do you remember the name of it? It's The Den of Lions or In the Lion's Den? I don't know. Can you look it up, or is it too? Oh no, you can't. That's right. So it's either in the Den of Lions or in the Lion's Den. The author is Terry Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I read a true story or hear of a true story, and the person is like strength, there's total strength, I have to see that person in person. So I did go to see Terry Anderson in person and hear him speak. And it amazed me because at that point, if somebody wrapped me up like that, I'd be like, oh, like, what's next? I think about hope. And I think about all the situations which we have no hope. It's funny. People come into the studio and I'll tell them, like, look at the camera. If you look at the red light, you're looking straight at the camera. Now I'm looking at the camera. But actually, the temptation is to look at the monitor. See, I'm looking at the monitor now, and it doesn't look like I'm looking at the camera. But I think the key to that is to bring the camera down to where the monitor is, which will give us a little bit of a different view. But I think I like that. So I actually don't like looking at the camera. I like looking at the monitor, right?
No, I
You
don't
wanna see
either.
this? Yeah, I like looking straight at the
Mhm.
monitor. So anyway, off topic. In the Lion's Den or in the Den of Lions, I think it's in the Lion's Den. It was by Terry Anderson or about Terry. I think it was by Terry Anderson.
Yeah, I think it was the
A magnificent book. If you want to read that kind of book, some people read history, some people don't. I generally don't read too many history books, but I'm not the history. He is the history expert. That's his field. He's the history expert. And but I really liked that book. I liked A Mighty Heart. That was excellent. And I only read part of the other book that we did on the other show, Moshe Dayan, The Story of My Life. And somebody loaned that book. It was a very, very good book. So back to Terry Anderson and hope. I would be thinking at the time that they captured him, any ordinary being would think that there's no hope. That's it. It's like on the way to God knows where to do God knows what, and I would think there'd be no hope. But if we read his book, I saw him like in the flesh. He was standing up, a real human being. He had survived. He got through it. He got through how many years in prison?
I think it was 8.
Seven or eight?
I think
Okay, so he was in prison 7 or 8 years. 7 or 8 years. He was in prison, in a foreign prison, not in an American prison, which people have a lot of rights and things going on in American prison. He was in a really tough, rough
a little
foreign
over
prison.
6 years.
6 years. And he was taken to that prison pretty much wrapped up like a bagel in plastic wrap, covered from head to toe. And at that point, I'm thinking, yeah, most people would think there's no hope. And I guess that's a lesson for all of us. There is always hope. There's no such thing as there's no hope. There is always hope, no matter what you're going through. Whatever your situation is. So remember, there's always hope. And if you want to tell a story of your hope or how you've been hopeful or how you have had experiences in your life or just want to talk about your cause or your hobby or your job, write to books.musicreview@gmail.com. So what do you know about, you didn't read the Terry Anderson book. You can tell me more about The Mighty Heart. What would you think? Did you read the whole book, A Mighty Heart?
Yeah, I read it a long time ago. And
What
then
do you
I
think,
reread, sections of it.
What was the most impressive part of that book to you? The most memorable, or what really struck you in that book, The Mighty Heart?
She, I don't know. I guess less about the book than the fact that she was able to write the book so soon after the death of her husband, and it does come through the fact that the love she has for Daniel. I mean, that's something that really comes through on the page, and the more you read it, the more it is. You do get the idea that it's a love story, even though there is information about about the investigation and the search for these Al Qaeda terrorists who had kidnapped him. But I mean, that's one of the main things that recurs throughout the book. This idea of her love for Daniel Pearl, for her husband.
So, would you recommend this book to anyone interested in that kind of a topic?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a great book. It's really
You're touching the mic there a little bit back. That's good.
it's no, it's an impressive book. I would definitely recommend it for anyone who hasn't read it. Like I said, it's been out. It was published a long time ago, right? 2003, and Daniel Pearl. Another. That was another. His execution was kind of a pillar, like the 9/11 attacks, a sign that Al Qaeda really had no restraint on what it would do in order to perpetuate this ideology of just this anti-human sort of dogma.
Anti-human, you know what? Yeah, that's pretty serious. Anti-human stuff. I have a lot to say about that, but I'm not going to say it about it. But I could tend to go off on another topic. Maybe since it's summer and we only got 3 minutes left, we could talk about the Clay Pit Pond State Park Preserve. Go to see the Clay Pit. It's called Clay Pit Pond States Park Preserve. It is in a part of New York. It's in Staten Island. All you Staten Islanders. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. We've got 3 minutes. I'm going to see if I can say this really quickly. In 3 minutes, I'll be like a salesperson. So the Clay Pit Pond State Park Reserve is 260 acres of my favorite things. Fields, wetlands, sandy barrens, and spring-fed streams. The natural area is home to, check this out, 180 species of birds. 180 species of birds, where there have been more than 40 of the have been bred there, including 180 species of birds. So get out there somewhere in the summer and go out to the Hamptons or go out to the clay pits or go out to the festivals coming up. I know the Richmond County Fair is coming up, and probably you'll see this again, which you'll probably say has been passed. But there's 2 minutes left to the show. What do you think it's important to say about any topic?
Oh,
and we'll leave on a nice, positive, creative, up note. Say something.
Yeah, well, just the things we've been talking about. I think in terms of, I think that is a positive note. The idea of love, the idea that love kind of persists even after death.
Oh, that's good. I got a minute. I can tell this story. When I was a child, someone used to beat me up, and they tried to get me to hate my father. Yeah. And the more that they beat me and pounded on me, and they wanted me to hate my father, inside, in my mind, I'm like, I love my father. So I guess it's like those prisoners of war when they're taken prisoner. It's like they're beaten and tortured and all, but they still keep their values, and they still keep what they originally had with them, and they still keep what they love. You cannot beat love out of someone. Yeah, simple as that. I'm sorry. I asked you to take the 2 minutes, and I spoke. Go for it.
Oh no, that was a good. It's a good way to sum up sum up the program. The idea of you can't really beat or kill or torture someone into confession. I mean, that was one of the bravest things about Daniel Pearl, the fact that he stood up for his beliefs and his identity, even even though he knew his life was coming to an end.
Okay, so we got 7 minutes left. We're glad you came to the show. You can bring us out of the show with whatever you have to say. 2 minutes.